Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening and welcome to everyone on YouTube and TikTok and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. I am woefully underprepared for this evening's live stream, but I've got something really cool to talk about, and it might be entertaining in a sort of car crash telly kind of way. But first of all, I've got my camera in the wrong place. I can't even see the buttons I need to. Let me get straight into it. First of all, in the last 8 days, some of you were watching the live stream last Sunday night when I passed 10,000 subscribers. Thank you. Today I passed 10,500 subscribers, so there are 500 more of you I have to welcome to YouTube. And actually on TikTok, there are 4,000 more of you I have to welcome. Mostly thanks in that time to the video I did called Death in Poverty. It was an overwhelming reaction. I was so nervous about the reaction to that video because it was really a pretty depressing topic in a way, but also spoken about in a quite light-hearted way. I initially published it without going public, just so people had to listen to my other video and find the link to watch it. You all then persuaded me to publish it, and I did. And if you're watching this on TikTok and you haven't seen it, go to my YouTube channel and look for the Death in Poverty video. I can't believe the hundreds and hundreds of comments from everyone were going, this is actually a really positive thing that you're talking about it. I was so heartened, if that's a word, by your response to it. And, you know, I'm trying to consider the fact whether or not my audience is a little bit biased and just all very supportive of me, and whether or not everybody feels that way. But anyway, thank you for your reaction to that. And welcome to all 500 and 4,000 of you on TikTok as well. It's all a little bit mind-blowing, and honestly, just a little bit overwhelming in a wonderful way. But thank you, and all of you, welcome. Welcome to my new followers. Welcome back to my existing followers. And without further ado, let's get on to this evening's topic. I'm going to start by sharing this page with you I've got on my computer. No, it's not ready because I'm underprepared, but it will be ready momentarily, and I'll read it out to you. No, that's the wrong one. Where is it? There it is. Okay. It says, sorry guys, where's that page? Here. It's easier. Oh, I've got to sorry. Right, here we go. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Right? I only heard that recently. Apparently it's a very, very old expression. Mark Twain is credited with it. And that applies to this topic about why house prices for some of the houses that are being advertised are so high. If you think about it, estate agents need to start off by competing with each other to win a seller's business, to win the instruction to sell that house, by telling you that they are the person that's going to get the highest price for your house. And that, by the way, is pretty much the only benefit there is to an agent of saying that house prices, or talking about high house prices, because the higher the house price they tell you that they're going to get for you, the more difficult their job in achieving it. And that will come into the conversation a bit later on, okay? Once they've got your instruction, they are immediately when they know that they've overpriced it to get your business, they are immediately working about managing your expectations into a price drop. So many estate agents have weekly, they call them price drop meetings, right? How are we going to get Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Joe and Joanna Bloggs to drop their price so we can sell the house, because we can't sell at the price that they're asking for? And, so a lot of people blame estate agents for the fact that house prices are so high. They don't help things, but it is not actually agents, it is sellers. And a lot of agents will tell you that it's the sellers who insist on an unrealistically high price. And often the sellers will actually insist on a price even higher than the agent said. Okay. But what's astonishing is that even when the writing is on the wall, some sellers, I'm going to give you 4 little case studies here now to back this up, because what I think is useful if you're a buyer looking to buy, wanting to buy, willing to pay a fair market price, but not wanting to overpay, and bashing your head against the wall going, why won't anyone accept my offers? This might help understand. And if it helps you to understand it, it might help you to navigate it and maybe overcome the problem. So in no particular order, I've had 2 of you private messaging me today, and I'm going to talk, you've both very kindly allowed me to use your stories whilst remaining anonymous. And I'm going to talk about 2 of my personal friends. One's actually a family member. I'm going to start with a family member. Put their house on the market back in the summer last year. Sorry, they didn't put it on the market. They agreed to sell, a private sale. I can't remember how it came about, but there was a sale agreed at a really high price back in the summer. But by the autumn, the buyer had been delaying a bit, and I remember talking to my family member, and they said, well, the buyer's kind of messing us around, and they're now trying to chip us on price, because of course in the autumn house prices were coming down. It's a cash buyer. It was a savvy cash buyer, an investor themselves, but they were wanting to buy it as a home. And I warned him, and I said, it sounds like your buyer's on the way out. If you're already not going to accept the new lower price and you need to sell, you need to get on the market straight away. And when you do get on the market straight away, do not make the mistake of overpricing it. And I really spent time talking to my family member who knows that I know my stuff. And at the end of the conversation, he said, yeah, we're still going to stick it on at a higher price. And at that point in the conversation, I just tend to go, okay, best of luck. I'm now going to switch to a friend of mine in London who's selling her house. And I had an almost identical conversation, which is, you've got to, the way to get the highest price in a falling market is to price it at such a level that you get buyers competing with each other because they think it's good value. That is the only way you can find out what is the best price. Okay. And we had the conversation, and I explained the logic, and I explained why it never works the other way around, except in a rising market. And she acknowledged that house prices are falling and that it's not a good time to sell. And she said, but we're still going to put it on at that higher asking price. And I just thought, oh my God, even people who love me and know me and trust me are hearing my advice and going, but we're still just going to put it up there. So what is it? What makes people do this? I don't even need to tell the other 2 stories, because they're basically the same. It's one of them is actually a seller, and they've said that they've decided to go on the market at the higher price because the agent has persuaded them that they will get it. To which my response was, that's great, but there's more chance of getting the higher price if you advertise it at a lower price. And actually they've gone, oh yeah, maybe we've made a mistake. And then the other person was someone on Twitter who told me about a house that they've been offering on. It's been on the market for 4 months. Nothing's happened. They put in an offer. The offer was rejected. The agent took it off the market and has put it back on as a different property, so that on Rightmove, it doesn't show up as having had its price reduced. But it's still too high. Okay, so what's going on? What is going on? So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this, and I've linked to it in the description below, but there is a phenomenon, and I'm going to share the Wikipedia page with you right now so you can see, and it's called optimism bias. And all of us, except for autistic people, are susceptible to optimistic biases. It transcends all demographics. It doesn't matter what your age, race, religion, gender, none of that matters. Optimism bias is a very, very well proven thing, not even just in humans, but in some animals as well. And autistic people is sort of less susceptible to optimistic biases, which chimes with the optimistic people I know who they just call bullshit and go, no, that's just stupid, isn't it? And when you look at it and you read this, I won't read it all out now, but if you read this page, which I've linked to on Wikipedia below the video, it's fascinating. And anyone who thinks that they are above or exempt from this is making a really silly mistake, and that's actually been quite thick. So you need to read this article. There was one I really wanted to get. Yeah, I'm not going to read it out now, but you need to go and read it. Yeah, people can control. Here we are. This is a really powerful statement. Self-enhancement is called. People can control their anxiety and other negative emotions if they believe they are better off than others. Anyway, go and read it. That optimism bias, and by the way, guys, don't any of you buyers out there think that you are immune from optimism bias, which is just as prevalent among buyers as it is among sellers. In the current market, the problem is because the market is falling, so it's much more acute for sellers than it is for buyers. But now, okay, are we being over optimistic to say if you're a buyer and we're saying that prices are going to come down 35% in the next 3 years? Well, that's a debate we'll come on to in a moment when we're talking about the economy and the economic outlook. But optimism bias explains this bizarre, irrational tendency for people to acknowledge the logical way of getting a higher price and then disregard it and put the price at a higher price. And what they're doing is they're hoping that one person, and actually my friend said to me, she said, all I need is that one person to walk in the door and fall in love with the house. Yes, but that doesn't presume that person who falls in love with the house is going to be so unaware of what's happening in the housing market that they're going to just pay you a price that's too high. And the mistake, and the reason that this is such a costly mistake, is because at the moment, house prices on average, and in higher values it's higher, are falling at £1,000 a week. Every week they wait, you're losing another £1,000 on average. Yes, regional variations. Yes, pockets that are exempt from it, but they are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that the overall picture is that house prices are falling. No one's even disputing it anymore, except for those idiots on Twitter. That property investment company this morning going, confidence is back and there's positivity in the housing market. It's like, oh dear. So optimism bias is what we are all up against with these sellers. It's also worth pointing out that you've got to separate the sellers into two groups. People who need to sell, right? It's not an option. They must sell for life reasons. Death, debt, divorce, job move, that kind of thing. Those are the must sell. And typically in normal times, they account for about 1/3 of sales. Then you have people who want to move, but can only move if they get what they want for the house. Now, I had a chap today messaging me saying, well, unless we get the asking price we want, we're just not going to move. We'll stay here for another year. And it's worth remembering that there are a lot of sellers in that position. And, hey, there's nothing wrong with doing that. If you're a first-time buyer and you end up buying a place and you come to sell it in a few years' time, you might be in the same situation. And again, if you are a buyer trying to negotiate sellers down, it's really important to try and find out what that seller's situation is. And this one, for example, he said, if I get this price, this target price, we will accept it immediately, even though we haven't found our next place, and move out. And what do you mean? What I think he's saying there is we're going to cash in on the house price rises. And I don't know, maybe he'll get it, maybe he won't. He had two other agents around. One of them valued it at this price he wanted. One of them said below. They're both very, very well-known, respectable brands. And for one of them to be saying, no, that's too optimistic in this market, I suspect he's being too optimistic and he's not going to sell it. In which case he just said, well, if I don't get that price, I'm not going to move. Now, are sellers who are doing that wasting people's time? Not if they've been honest with the agent and the agent can say to buyers, unless they get this price, they're not going to move. Okay? Because they don't need to move. They're only going to move if they get this price. So as frustrating as that might be, it's worth ensuring when you look at a property to find out what the seller's position is. Do they have to move, or are they just holding out for a silly price, just for shits and giggles, or so that they can move into someone else? But again, if you are upsizing, all other things being equal, when the market comes down, this is not always true, actually. If you're upsizing modestly, then yes, you're probably going to save money. It's only the price differential that matters. But the higher priced properties in the market, I'm talking about £750,000 and upwards, are definitely taking longer to come down in price. Now, that is either because there are no falls up there because everyone's cash buying and there's still a shortage of nice property and all the rich people are buying them, or it's because it takes a while for the price drops at the lower end of the market to filter up the chain to these higher transactions. And I think it's more of the latter, because there are plenty of people with £1 million mortgages, plenty. And there are job losses in the tech sector and the banking sector. And there are people with £1 million mortgages losing their jobs. And I do not believe that sector of the market is immune to it. It may or may not be less or slightly different levels of immunity, but it's going to be affected. It just may take longer. All right. So, where have we got to? I've covered optimism bias, and so yeah, that quote right at the beginning. It's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they've been fooled. Have a think about that, because it's true. We're all guilty of that, right? And if you go on, and I saw another actually very interesting quote about this, which I will share here. Every blockhead is thoroughly persuaded that he is in the right, and everyone who is all too firmly persuaded is a blockhead. And the more erroneous in his judgment, the greater the tenacity with which he holds it. That explains. Do you ever come across those people who've got quite an extreme opinion? And the more extreme it is, and the less they can back it up, the harder they stick by it. I am not changing my mind. I don't care what you say. I'm not changing my mind. I've made up my mind. That's it. End of story. And they just won't engage in it. We all know people like that, don't we? It's tough. And there's nothing you can do about that, which is a shame, other than continue to try and softly engage them in the debate. But now I don't want to only point this at sellers, because it is also true that there are buyers who are being too hopeful. Okay. House prices have not yet fallen 35%. Right? Nationwide says they've fallen 6% since the highs. I think when you factor in the 2 or 3 month delay from Nationwide's house prices, you're talking about actually 10% off the highs. At today's prices, we're 10% off the highs. So, buying today is 10% off the highs if you want to buy today. Okay. Now, you don't want to buy today if you think it's going to fall another 25%. That's the problem. That's why we've got the sticking point. Okay. And there's still the Mexican standoff, and they're still waiting for the seller capitulation to happen, and it's happening slowly. So for those of us who are of the opinion that property prices are coming down, it feels like waiting forever for it to happen. And actually, I think that it's worth everyone considering, if you're a buyer, look, this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to take a while. Should we be reconsidering the timing of our move or the strategy of our move? So let's come on then, because obviously the biggest thing that affects whether house prices are going to fall or not is what's happening in the economy. And to me, since May last year, May 2022, I remember saying to Anne-Marie, my other half, this is going to be horrific. This is going to be brutal. This is going to be a recession unlike anything we've seen in our lifetimes. And I explained why. And to me, it was really, really clearly obvious as to why this was going to be the case. And there was pretty much nothing that could be done to avoid it. Nothing. And I'm still of the case. Now, I want to share now. Okay, I've put a link below to the Gov UK statistics for business failures, right? Business bankruptcies, business insolvencies, right? But here is the Guardian article, which I've also linked to below, which I want to share with you. Now, that figure on the screen, business insolvencies jumped 30%. 30%. as 22,000 firms go bust in 2022. Last year, before we even ended up in recession. Okay? And it was already that bad. Right? These are like record jumps in insolvencies. Now, what does this mean? Right? All these people are going to be losing their jobs. It hasn't come through into the system yet. Do you think that's going to get better or worse this year? Right? Well, we know that the government thinks it's going to get worse because they're predicting that we've actually begun recession. We're going to be in recession for a while, which means that's going to make it worse than last year because we weren't even in recession last year. Officially, I said we were as of August, as in the economy was contracting, but you have to be in 2 consecutive quarters for it to be an official recession, which we are now in. And the other massive thing is that in April, the government is suspending its energy support for businesses. This is going to get much worse. How can it not? There's no hint that the government is going to step in and continue. They've said they're going to end it. They're not going to continue it. They're certainly not going to put it up. I just can't see how this is not going to get worse and worse and worse. For anyone watching this who is worried about this, I'm not being unsympathetic here. I'm trying to get people to understand that it's better to be prepared. Now, what do you think is going to happen to house prices? Not just sales prices, but rental prices too, when the number of people being made redundant is going to spike. It's just going to get worse and worse this year. I want to pick a couple of lines out of this article, okay? Figures for England and Wales likely to worsen as UK goes into recession, say analysts. And the other figure was the total number of company insolvencies registered in England and Wales reached 22,109, which is the highest since the recession in 2009, right? And we're not yet in recession. And 57% higher than 2021. Christina Fitzgerald, president of R3, the Insolvency and Restructuring Trade Body, said, 2022 was the year the insolvency dam burst. And then today, we had this story out, just midday today, on Bloomberg. UK house builders in worst slump. I think it's a typo. They've got sump. It's very unlike Bloomberg to have a typo. UK house builders in worst slump in almost 3 years, S&P says. And that goes on to say, firms cut construction as house prices and loan approvals sink. And some people go, oh, that means that they're just cutting construction to put house prices up. By cutting construction, that's going to mean that supply gets tightened and therefore they're going to keep house prices up. No, they're cutting construction because they're trying to stop themselves going insolvent. House prices and loan approvals sink. Construction jobs being cut at fastest pace in 2 years. House builders slammed the brakes on construction at the start of 2023 as a surge in mortgage interest rates caused activity in the property market to freeze over. And okay, I hear some of you say, oh, but interest rates are going to start coming down. We don't know that. We know that they're definitely going up. They're expected by the market to go up from 4 to 4.25%. That's what priced in. My friend Alex is fairly sure that they won't come down this year like people think they're going to, because inflation will not come down as fast as people think it's going to, and the bank will have no choice but to keep them at higher rates. Okay, and the inflation is going to start to get pretty persistent. Now maybe they will come down, and I hope they do. I really hope that they do, as well as house prices to improve affordability. Okay, but guys, there just isn't any measurable, quantifiable good news that I can see anytime soon. And so when people go, last year, people were going, 35%, Charlie, what are you on? What are you smoking? I wasn't smoking anything. I was just thinking this through. 22,000 businesses go bust. A lot of people lose their jobs in those businesses. Businesses that supply those businesses end up being affected and go bust as well. And the number of job vacancies is dropping. So affordability for these people is going to get worse. So is this going to improve or reduce the number of first-time buyers? It's going to reduce it, isn't it? People who are losing their jobs are going to be moving out of rented property, moving back in with their parents. So, when prices come down, this will be good news for those who can afford to buy and to rent. But there are an awful lot of people who this is not going to be good for. And there are insolvencies at all sectors, in all sectors. All the major ones anyway. They're in banking, in housing, in tech. All of the world's biggest tech companies are laying off people. And that tells you that people are pulling their advertising revenues. Businesses are stopping advertising. It's all, and it's not just the UK. I mean, it's a global situation. Maybe the UK economy is worse than the others or not. I don't know. The IMF says it is, but it doesn't matter. It's just a pretty bleak picture, right? So how fast are sellers going to come to terms with this? You have the adoption curve, don't you? Right? The smart, forward-thinking sellers are already dropping their prices intelligently. They're going with intelligent agents. They're saying, we need to move. We know the market's coming off. Price it where you need to price it. Get it sold. Let's get moved. Okay? That is happening. There are transactions happening with intelligent, forward-thinking sellers who've managed to transcend their optimism bias. Optimism bias, if you are a seller right now, is likely to cost you a lot of money. All right? And if you're a seller watching this, please look at that link on Wikipedia, read what optimism bias is, and ask yourself, could this be me? Because you're only harming your own chances of moving if it's you. And if you do decide to drop the price to sell it, don't make the mistake that most people do, which is not dropping it enough and just repeating the same thing, watching the market fall away from you and dropping again and watching it fall. You've got to drop your price to below what the market is expecting. And then you get a flurry of buyers, all right? And you'll get your property sold quickly. Right. Let's take some questions. I haven't been able to see what's happening in the comments. Anyone on... Yeah, Daniel on TikTok says base rate of 4% long term, I reckon. I agree with you. I think it's going to go up a bit first and then come back down to around 4%. Now, I have to move this camera slightly because otherwise I can't see them. Do we have any questions on this topic? Lots of people's opinions, lots of new names. Welcome everyone that's new. I've got to move this camera, I'm afraid, otherwise I can't see the questions. Oh, sorry, my desk is so cluttered. Okay. What have we got here, guys? Here's a great question I want to answer. Charlie, Emma Anderson on YouTube asks, Charlie, why aren't agents playing hardball with their sellers? Are they scared to lose the listing? Yes. If they lose the listing, they definitely lose the fee. So they are scared to lose the listing. What I've been advising estate agents to do since September last year, by the way, any estate agents watching this, and I know that there are agents watching this, I've been saying that since September last year, if you've got sellers with unrealistic prices, you should be saying to them that you either need to sell, dear Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you need to drop your price to a price at which I can sell it, or you need to find yourself another agent. One of two things will happen. Either they will do what they'll be, because that's quite a jolt, isn't it? If you're a seller and your agent says, I'm sorry, if you don't drop your price, I can't act for you anymore. You'll need to find another agent. That's going to really shake you out of your optimism bias, isn't it? But that involves, I know good agents who have been caught by surprise by how fast the market has fallen in some areas. And, for agents, it's also a bit of optimism bias of their own that they've got to overcome. And they've got to go to their clients and say, I'm very sorry, I got this wrong. We got to lower the price far more than I thought. But again, if you're the seller and you need to move, you're like, okay, well, thank you for being honest. Let's do that. If the seller says, no, I'm not going to drop my price because I want it, well, then as an agent, you're better off not having that seller anyway. Let some other poor mug agent list them at overprice and waste their time and earn no money from it. So there are agents playing hardball. There are agents who are trying. I mean, you don't want to go into, imagine you're the seller, right? You don't want your agent to turn up and go, look, I'm really sorry. Either you take 15% off your price or get someone else. You're just not going to do that. You've got to do it empathetically. So agent, but I know, believe me, I know agents in large numbers are managing price reductions. What's this quote? Okay, yeah. Craig Wood says, another Mark Twain quote. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Yeah, very relevant. Thomas Moran, Dell just cut 6,650 jobs. Ouch. Okay, Vince. Yes, you sent me this question. Vince Samios. Hi, Vince. Wage increases. How do you see them influencing house prices? If so, how? Okay. For the people who are lucky enough to be getting wage rises bigger than inflation, for example, Aldi employees, I think, got a 15% pay rise. It's great for them. They're actually going to be slightly better off. Not a lot because of inflation, but slightly better off. And I think that when you see what inflation is doing to house prices as well, they're kind of going to be able to continue where they are. They're much worse off. But as the country as a whole, these partial wage increases, which are not keeping up with inflation, so they're just kind of slowing the pain, if you like, but they are going to continue worsening inflation. So that's the horrible catch-22. These partial wage increases are prolonging inflation, but people are still poorer on average, because on average, even in the private sector, wage rises are not keeping up with inflation. That's my view. I don't think they're going to help house prices anytime soon. Next question. Yeah says, why have other countries such as Canada and New Zealand seen greater falls in house prices than the UK? I don't know is the answer to that. I don't know. But what I do think is that those guys are the canary in the coal mine. And they didn't think it could happen there either. Yes. Okay, Jacek. Is it Jacek or Jacek? D on YouTube. Charlie, do you have advice for first-time buyers finding out what a reasonable price is so that they don't overpay, but it's also high enough to be accepted? Okay, guys. This brings me on to another point I wanted to make about working out what your offer is. I have done a video, and if you haven't seen it, please go and look at it. If I remember after this, I'll put a link to it in the description about how to work out your offer price. Your price that you are offering should have no correlation with the asking price, no correlation at all, right? It should be purely what that property is worth to you in your personal circumstances, and should not be an amount higher than you are comfortable to pay given all the circumstances. Okay? There is no percent under asking price that you should be offering. That's a mistake. If you're basing your offer prices on a percent under asking price, then you've disregarded my advice. You must simply go, how much do we think is the maximum price we're comfortable paying for that property? That's the only way you should consider what it is. And the maximum comfortable price, in other words, the maximum that you are happy to afford to stretch to. And then you make that offer in writing. And it's your one and only offer. And I can't get this point across. So many of you have been messaging me and saying, well, we put our offer in and they rejected it, so we put it up a bit. Well, that means you didn't put your maximum comfortable offer in first. And I promise you guys, you'll speed this process up by putting in your maximum comfortable offer in first and getting people to understand that. I know that most of you aren't going to do it. Again, I don't know why. It works. It just improves your chances of getting the deal done when people take you seriously, that is your one and only offer. Great question. Hanrako on YouTube says, hey Charlie, when we make an offer, should we also put an expiry date on it? Potentially. Don't just put an arbitrary expiry date on your offer to try and get a quick response from the seller. Because if you do that and you don't get a response from the seller, they might still think of selling it to you. You might actually think, well, they just needed a bit more time. But what you can do is say, and this is hardballing, but I think it's fair given the fact that there is plenty of evidence that house prices are falling at X, £1,000 a week roughly on the average price, and you can scale that up or down depending on where you are in the market. You can say that this offer is, because house prices are falling and we'd like to make a quick decision, this offer is valid for 7 days or 14 days, after which time the offer will start to reduce by £1,000 a week. I remember someone doing that to me when I was trying to sell a car. And it was like, it was the most, I was a teenager. It was so brutal. I went to sell this old Mini to a guy at a garage. And he said, I wanted 350 quid for it. He said, I'll give you 300 quid for it. I said, oh, I really wanted 350. He said, well, it's just gone down to 275. Like, what? He said, yeah, and if you don't take 275, it's going to go down to 250 in 10 seconds. I'm like, I'll take you 275. And it was brutal, but it was an amazing lesson. You know, if you're the only buyer, as this chap was for the Mini that I was selling, one of those old tiny Minis. Oh, such good cars. You know, as long as you mean it, and as long as you're not just posturing, because if you're posturing as a buyer, then it's guff. You sort of mean it's buyer guff, and there is plenty of buyer guff out there. So pay the max. Okay, all right. Gwyn C has. I'm going to come. I want to come and answer your point because I disagree with you deeply, and I'm going to explain why. Gwyn C says it doesn't make sense paying the maximum you can afford. Gwyn, could you reveal your hand? Are you an investor? Are you a landlord? Or are you a buyer or a seller moving home? Are you just a home mover or are you an investor? Because your next comment, where you say you might get a better property for the same money. Yeah, but when? How long are you going to wait for that? Better property in what sense? I'm only suggesting people should offer on a property that they want to live in, like they really want to live in. And I'm assuming that if someone makes an offer on a property, it's because it's the property that they most want to live in. And if it's the property of all the ones you've seen that you most want to live in, then that's the one you're going to buy. And if you want to maximize your chances of you getting that property and not someone else, then you offer the maximum you're comfortable paying, because securing the home you want to live in is more important than saving a few thousand quid. I will go back to one of the pieces of advice that one of the best estate agents I've known my whole life since I was a kid. He just said to me, week in, week out, buyers make the mistake. They find a home or a flat they love. They don't offer asking price. I tell them to offer asking price. They don't offer asking price and they lose it to someone else. And then they kick themselves and go, why didn't we just offer asking price? We would have paid that. He said, and they just kick themselves again and again and again. So Gwyn, if you're an investor and you're looking at returns, yeah, your argument makes sense. But this is a channel for home movers, people who are looking to secure a place to live. And it's about that, not about the financial considerations, other than, of course, avoiding negative equity, because negative equity means you then can't move house or you might lose your home. So that's the only financial consideration from my point of view. Next question. I can see this is going to be a busy one, isn't it? There's a lot of you guys. William Kerwin, hi William, welcome, asks, is there an alternative to gazumping or winning back a property if the house you wanted is now sold STC, or do we just hope the deal falls through? It's the same. I mean, either you stand by and hope for it to fall through, which is quite a high chance at the moment, or you go in and make a higher offer, which is gazumping. I don't know of a third option to those two. So no question. The answer to the question, William, is I don't know that. Right. Next question. Oh, good question. Millicent A on YouTube says, as a first time buyer, and sorry, TikTok guys, if you've got questions there, I will come to you in just a moment. I can't answer questions on individual properties or financial stuff, or as in mortgages and stuff. I'm not a mortgage broker or a financial advisor. These are really moving questions I can answer. As a first-time buyer with no experience, how can you tell that you're being taken for? How can you tell if you're being taken for a ride by an estate agent? Any signs they're taking advantage of your lack of knowledge? Okay, that's an excellent question. Excellent question. Do estate agents take advantage of the fact that you're an inexperienced buyer? You must assume that the answer to that is yes, right? Most of them do. Not all of them, most of them do. And yes, you must assume that. Which is why I say, ready, all together now, everybody? Disregard the guff. Now, what I mean by that is, if you are an inexperienced buyer, don't listen to what the agent's telling you, right? You just need to listen to yourself. Like, do we like that property? Do not, they'll always say, well, we got a lot of interest. Really? Why haven't you sold it then? Oh, we've got lots of other offers. Really? Why are you showing it to me then? Just disregard all of that stuff. Okay? Just, it may or may not be true. I'm not saying that, but the point is it doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is this. Do you want to live in that property? Do you want to live in it? That's the first question to ask yourself. Okay? When you come out of the viewing, say, thank you very much for the viewing. We're going home. Don't talk about it now. Off you go. And literally just say to the agent, we don't want to talk about it now. We want to go back. Say that we're considering it. We're considering the property, and we'll let you know tomorrow our feedback. Okay? Go home and ask yourself the question, do we want to live in that property? And by the way, when you ask yourself that question, if the answer is, then it's definitely no. If it isn't, hell yes, I definitely want to live in that property, then it's a no. It's just a no. And you might say, oh, well, your budget might be limiting you to properties that aren't your dream house. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about in the context of what you can afford. Is it a house you want to live in, yes or no? And if the answer is yes, do not make an offer on the day. Do not make an offer in person. Do not make an offer on the phone, even if they try and make you. Go home, sleep on it. Guys, please listen to this advice, right? Go home, sleep on a viewing. Next morning when you wake up, ask yourself, having slept on it, do we still want to live in that place? Yes. Right. Now, what's our maximum comfortable offer? It doesn't matter whether they've got other offers on or not, because whether they've got other offers on the property should not affect how much you're comfortable paying. Do you see my point? It's irrelevant. So if you want to make an offer, you then have to calculate your maximum comfortable offer price. And by all means, the next morning say, we've decided we would like to make an offer on the property. We need a bit of time to formulate what our offer amount is. And we'll come back to you in 24 hours with our offer amount or whatever. And you then work out your maximum comfortable, and maximum comfortable price is the price above which you will not pay. And you've got to factor in your job security, your deposit size, your interest rate, your monthly repayments, whether or not you think you can absorb things if it goes wrong, if you lose your job, whether or not you can absorb, how long you're going to be living in the property, therefore might you need to sell it or not, how serious is the risk of negative equity in your opinion. All of these things affect your maximum comfortable offer price. Nothing the agent says should affect your maximum comfortable offer price. That's why I say disregard the guff. Nothing that it says in the particulars about the property, nothing they tell you about how many people are offering should affect your offer. Whether there are other people offering or not, you just offer the price that you're comfortable paying if you want to secure that home to live in. And you then do it by email. Now, Millicent, your question is good because it brings me on to the next question, which is, when the agent says there are lots of other offers, how do we know if it's true or not? And I did a video about this. We had a fascinating debate about, are agents lying when they say there are other offers? Well, let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that they're not lying. And what you are entitled to do is to ask the agent to confirm in writing that there are other offers, because it is against the law for them to lie to you, right? And if they put it in writing and you think they're lying and you later on want to sue them, you'll be able to produce it as evidence that they said they had other offers on this property, right? That agent will then be required to produce evidence of the other offers that they have on that property. So verbally, they'll often tell you that they've got other offers because it's incredibly hard to sue someone for what they said unless you've got a recording of it, right? Don't start recording them. Don't start making agents feel uncomfortable. Don't start treating them as though they're lying. But the way to get around this is, first of all, remember that it doesn't matter if they've got other offers or not, because if the other offers are higher than yours, you're not going to get the home. That's just okay, right? Don't expect to get all the properties. There will be properties where other people who either have more money or don't care or don't know what the market's doing are going to offer more than you. And if that happens, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Just walk away, right? That property was not meant for you. But if you feel like, so this is where it does matter whether the agent's telling the truth or not. If you feel as though the agent has managed to manipulate you into making a higher offer than you wanted to make to secure the property by making you believe that there are other offers, that's illegal. But only if you can prove it. And that's the hard part. And so if you're in a position where the agent is, whenever they're trying to make you hurry up, that is when, I did this, if I ever buy a car, and I've bought loads of cars in my life, whenever someone tries to put time pressure, at that point I go, look, I'm sorry, I'm not in any hurry. So if you don't sell it, give me a call back. And just remove yourself from the time pressure. Just go, no, sorry, if you've got other people, cool, sell it to them. I'm not interested in being pressured into an offer. You just walk away. Any sign of pressure, walk away. I don't care how desperate you are to buy a house, how fed up, how frustrated you are. Never, ever, ever be pressured into an offer. Okay. Eddie Ward says, a Dexter's agent in London I spoke to has admitted the market is falling. Yeah, I'm getting increasing stories and people saying that agents are admitting the market is falling. It's very hard for them to say that it's not when we've now got 6 months of nationwide house price data, and tomorrow we get Halifax as well. Yeah, Kiran Barrow says, the problem is we get so emotionally attached to a property that logic goes out the window. You're right. And that is why you must sleep on it. Okay? That's why you must sleep on it, because at least you've got a chance of waking up with a bit more of a rational thing. When we fall in love with someone or something, we literally go crazy and judgment and reason goes out of our mind. We must have it. We'll do whatever we need to do. Dan the investing man says, is it a risk to negotiate a lower offer? Yes, it's always a risk to negotiate a lower offer. Sorry, the full question is it a risk to negotiate a lower offer after being accepted due to a few unforeseen survey issues? Seller is deceased, so dealing with a solicitor on their behalf can ask them to consider it. So whenever you want to renegotiate your offer, you must always, first of all, say to yourself, am I willing to lose this deal? Because when you start a renegotiation, the seller might just go, right, I'm not selling it to you. That happens. That happens regularly. So you must be prepared to walk away. And what you're basically saying to yourself is, my maximum comfortable price is now reduced because of this new information I have about the property or about the market. So you must be willing to walk away if they don't accept your new, lower offer. Eddie Ward. I'm famous now. Charlie mentioned me. That's brilliant. That's funny. Oh, that's a great question. Felicia C on YouTube says, if you've been thinking of a property since early November, despite continuing to view others, does it mean that it is the house? It's a bit like saying you met someone, didn't you? You went on a date, and you're thinking since November, are they the one? I would say that's a fairly strong signal that that's the house. And in fact, I had someone else, there's been a long-time follower of the channel, tell me that exactly that happened. That the house they wanted and the one they fell in love with and they thought it was a new home, the seller wasn't dropping the price. So eventually they walked away. And then months later, the seller came back and actually said, is that offer still there? And the answer was yes. And, when you have a gut feel about a place, patience is such an essential ingredient if you're a buyer. I mean, never mind how patient I know you guys have already been the last few years, how hard it was to buy a place. But even now, patience is your friend. Patience is your friend. Just be patient, guys. Just be prepared to walk away every time. I know it's frustrating. When you've been looking for so long, but you just got to try and find a way to enjoy the process. Right. Craig Wood. I'm pretty sure I've answered this question before, Craig, and I'm pretty sure you were here when I did, but I will answer it again because there are a lot of new people here, and it's a good question. Craig Wood on YouTube asks, when in Europe, TikTok guys, I'm sorry, I haven't forgotten you. I will come and answer your questions now. When, in your opinion, is the best time to start looking to buy in relation to grabbing the best deals, i.e. to catch the bottom of the fall? Right, there's two different questions. The bottom of the fall is not going to be for 2 to 3 years. All right. And if you literally are going, I don't want to buy until it's hit the bottom, you'll need to do two things. Go and find somewhere to rent or stay where you are for 2 or 3 years. And secondly, you need to be, the bottom will be reached 6 to 9 months before the figures show the bottom has been reached and starts to come up. And there's always this bounce. So you've got to be out there viewing about a year before we get to the bottom. So about 2 years from now, if you really want to wait for the very bottom. Okay, TikTokers. Me asks, is it a good time to buy a home? You must be new here, me. Well, with 4,000 new followers on TikTok, so there are going to be some new ones. In a word, always, if you found a home that you like and you can afford it, always buy now, but don't overpay. But 6 months from now, it should be easier to buy a home. Brad on TikTok asks, do portals collect accepted offer data? No. Generally speaking, no. They do try, and they do get some, but they don't, and they don't publish it, and they can't publish it. And that's why Best Agent, by the way, welcome to Best Agent, anyone who's new here, my website, we will be collating offer accepted prices in due course. And we will be able to do that because we don't charge agents a monthly subscription like the other portals do. So we don't have to do what agents tell us in the same way. We are a mover-focused property website at Best Agent. Movers first, agents second. The other ones, Rightmove, Zoopla, they're all agents first, movers second. But Best Agent is the other way around. Ranj on TikTok says, buying a house, it just got downvalued by 20 grand by the mortgage company, but the seller is refusing to drop the price. So you're cool. Either you overpay by 20 grand, Ranj, if you can afford to do that, or you just stand your ground and take your time. Some of you have also been asking questions about should I be paying 2020 prices or 2019 prices or 2018 prices? Just ignore the past, ignore asking prices. The only thing that matters is what does it feel like you should be paying now today? Now, right, there was one more thing I wanted to say, which is really important. I know a lot of you are getting discounts off asking price and being pleased that you've done that because it means that you're allowed to go ahead. Or it means that you're able and can afford to proceed. I am still of the opinion that very few people out there, especially first-time buyers, like that girl just now who said, what if I've been thinking about a house since November? When you fall in love with a house and you fall in love with the idea of moving and you get what's called move fever, where you just have to move. I'm still worried that there are too many people overpaying, genuinely. If you've got a big deposit and you don't care about negative equity, you're fine. But if you've been saving for ages to your deposit and you've now got your 10 or 15% deposit and you've got your mortgage and principal and you're proceeding, I would be very, very nervous about buying a home with a 10 or 15% mortgage today unless I knew I'd got it at a very good price. Right, next question. Sorry, forgive me, guys. Just takes me a while. Pat Paloon asks, any chance of getting a discount off a new build? Yes, Pat. There definitely is a chance. Someone on Twitter did a calculation recently that showed that if, let's say you're being offered a property for £212,000, a new build property, and to get you to pay £212,000, they offer to pay £1,000 a month of your mortgage for 12 months, or they offer to pay £12,000 of your mortgage for you over time. And you think, well, that's great. Yeah, I'll pay my mortgage for it. It'd be nice to have a mortgage holiday. Well, by paying £212,000, as opposed to the difference, which is getting a £12,000 discount, so actually the builder gets the same amount of money in the end, by paying the full price but getting the 12 grand mortgage rebate or repayments, you are borrowing that £12,000, and over the course of 25 years, that 12 grand will cost you a total of 7 grand interest. So you're actually only 5 grand better off by getting 12 grand of your mortgage paid over 12 months. You are effectively borrowing £12,000 more, lending it to the house seller who repays it to you over 12 months. Always say no to cash incentives unless it's stamp duty. And in other words, unless it makes a difference between you being able to buy the house or not. If it actually is a cash incentive that means you can move in and without it you can't, then I accept that's probably worth doing. And that's why some of them are worth it. But, you know, you saw, if you were here at the beginning of the stream, UK house builders in worst slump, it says on Bloomberg. They are clinging on to the last few sellers who are buying stuff now, but very soon. I know Persimmon were doing negotiations. I think, Nikki, if you're watching this, you thought that Persimmon were considering discounts. Some are considering discounts. By the way, the new home builders' logic and reason and rationale for saying, look, we want you to pay this high price, but we'll give you 12 grand back, is to protect the future value of their development. Well, I'm sorry, guys, you can't do that. It's house price gravity. They are coming down, and you can't pretend that houses are worth more by making people overpay now and giving them a cash backhander to thank them for paying the higher price. You know, it's all accounting, and it's bollocks, and it means you're overpaying if you're taking cash incentives. Internal upgrades to your kitchen or your bathroom, that's a different thing. That's a worthwhile thing to look at, but I would still be looking for discounts. They've got loads of stuff that's not selling. Next question. 5 more minutes, guys, and I'm going to call it a night. Do we have any new questions on TikTok? I get asked a few times about modern method of auction. Generally speaking, unless you're a very experienced property buyer, I would be avoiding the modern method of auction. I'm not saying never, I'm not saying don't, but if you had to say to me, good thing or a bad thing, it's pitfalls. As a buyer, you are paying all the fees. The seller pays nothing. And people only tend to put properties into the modern method of auction because they're a bit desperate and there might be something wrong with the property. So generally speaking, I mean, go along if you want, or you know, make your bid, but just do your research. Make sure it's subject to the survey, or you've got the survey and you're prepared to accept the risks. But you know, if you're an inexperienced buyer, I wouldn't go anywhere near modern method of auction. Popalop, great YouTube name, says, seeing a lot going under offer and then a few weeks later coming back on. I want to share with you some best agent data, guys, and the TikTok guys. I'm going to have to show you this. Let me share with you this. So this is a snapshot of sales and lettings data in the UK right now, but it is divided, not the UK, it's England and Wales. It's just England and it's Wales. But I want to show you, there's a couple of really interesting things here. I need to share my screen. And here we go. Right. Can you all see that? Is that England or Wales? That is England, right? So we've got England. Right, guys, let me see if I can get the YouTube, get that so you can see. Okay. Now, this is a snapshot of all the properties, all the homes, right? We don't include garages and land and stuff like that, that are currently available in England for sale. And it's actually quite a low number, right? 213,000 homes. That's actually up on last week. It's gone up by about 10,000 from last week. I want you to look at the difference between the median price and the average price. That is a big difference, all right? I'm not going to go into the differences now. Look it up myself, but the average price is, I mean, median price is still a bit meaningless to you when it's for the whole country, but the median price is a much more meaningful indication of what prices really are. But what I'm highlighting on the screen right now is just properties that are marked as for sale. So the average asking price is £423,000, but the median asking price is £300,000. More importantly, look at the difference between the asking prices on properties that are for sale and the asking price is still being shown on sale agreed properties. So comparing like with like, on the for sale properties, the average price is 423, but the average price of sale agreed properties is 356. That's not the price that they sold at. That's not the price that was agreed. That was the price they were advertised at the point at which they went under offer. Now look, that is, what is that? That is a nearly £70,000 difference between the average asking price of properties that are for sale, in other words, sitting on the market, not selling, and the average asking price of the properties that are selling is 356,000, nearly 70 grand less. You can read into that whatever you like. And the median price on sale agreed is 285 compared to 356. Now, I've got lettings on here as well because I've been really leaving out lettings people, but it's really interesting. In England, there is a massive difference between the average asking price on lettings and the average price of let agreed properties. 1,900 quid versus 1,300 quid. That is nearly £600 difference between advertised stuff that's available and advertised stuff that's been agreed. But then the median, there's a big drop again in England from the median lettings price down. It's 1,150. So again, that's 750 quid less than the average price, and the median price. So guys, I know this is getting quite nitty gritty here, but it's worth understanding because this tells a story. And I've also got the price on Wales as well. So those of you from Wales are watching, I just don't want anyone to be left out. It's better to, England and Wales, different prices. There's no point in mixing them together, one big UK price. It doesn't help anyone. So I'm not saying that this is meaningful data. I'm saying that this is one. There are two reasons why this data is a bit less meaningless than the other data, right? It's a bit less meaningless because it's homes only. We've stripped out fish and chip shops, pubs that are for sale, land, garages, commercial stuff. We've stripped as much of that out as we can. It's all done by algorithms, so it's not perfect. We've got median price instead of as well as average price. That gives you a bit more insight to what's happening. And we've got the total number of homes actually for sale or to let on there. So guys, I hope that's helpful. Do we have any last minute questions? Someone on TikTok is asking if they can be my user affiliate in the Northwest platform affiliate. Can you private message me somewhere? Not on TikTok, anywhere else. Go to my link, my Linktree link on my TikTok profile, and then anywhere you want over there, you can send me a private message. Zoran J asks, do I recommend the first time buyers wait to buy till 2024? Unless you are in a position where you need to find a place to buy it and live in there quickly. In other words, there is any stress being applied to your need to move. I think 2024 is going to be, there's going to be a lot more choice and also a lot more certainty about what the future economy holds. Cosima asks, when is Alex back? I actually recorded something with Alex this evening that I might be putting out later tonight, just a 15-minute follow-up to the Death and Property video. And I'm hoping to see him again on Thursday to do another video. Okay, Gwyn. A couple more questions. Charlie, can you be specific about what you mean when you say don't overpay? That is a fair question. And here is my off the top of my head answer. Do not pay more than you can comfortably afford given your personal circumstances that's it. Don't pay more than you can comfortably afford for your given your personal circumstances. Don't be sucked into an auction scenario where you're competing against other offers and you end up overstretching yourself. It's almost like don't overpay is don't overstretch yourself, but taking that into account has to include forming your own opinion of what the economy is going to do and how that's going to affect house prices, because overpaying is less likely in a rising market than it is in a falling market. All right. But, a lot of people have been overpaying for property in the last year. This is my point. People who thought they weren't overstretching themselves, Gwyn. But, I started saying in May last year and then really loudly in August last year, the housing market's going to fall, don't overpay. No one believed it. Very few people listened. Very few people believe me. Guys, I'm going to call it a night. It's been a fantastic one. I'm so grateful to all of you. Can I please just remind all of you that when you are buying now, and I know a lot of you are out there buying now and making offers, it's very important to have a mortgage in principle ready to improve the chances of your offer being accepted sooner, especially if you're up against cash buyers, right? So I work with a couple of firms. They're handpicked by me because I like them and I trust them. They are independent mortgage brokers. They are whole of market mortgage brokers, which means that they've got a better chance of getting you a better deal than other brokers that don't do whole of market and aren't independent. Pop your details in at the email address, the web address on the screen, mhwc.co.uk/mortgage. It's in my Linktree menu, and it's also linked below. And any one of you that ends up taking out a mortgage through these guys, it ends up helping me. I get a little something from those guys for doing it. That's really, really helpful. Please also, If you know people who are selling or buying and don't know about this channel, please put them onto it, because I want to spread the message. My mission at the moment is preventing people from going to negative equity. And I think there are people, even people who've watched this channel, who have paid, who've bought and they've overpaid and they're going to find themselves in trouble. And I just don't think anyone understands how bleak the economy is likely to get. Not will, but I really think it is. I just can't see any good news for a while. On that miserable note, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you very much to my new followers. Thank you very much for the support. It's genuinely a little bit bewildering and overwhelming and head spinning as the channel is growing. I look forward to seeing you on the next video, and see you on the next one, guys. Bye bye. Lots of love and luck to everybody, and all the best in your home moves.